Gerald Lucas here with another installment of Ask Gerald, where you get your real estate questions answered. Today's question comes from Clark. Clark writes from Tinton Falls, New Jersey. And Clark writes, our oldest son is going to college. Do you think it makes good financial sense to buy a rental property for him to live in while he's there? Well, Clark, I can see why buying a rental property for your son to go to college might seem like a good idea. The additional income, perhaps from roommates, and possibility of equity appreciation, and also just to teach your kid about money and about real estate. So I can see where it might seem like a good idea. However, buying a property brings with it serious landlord responsibilities, as well as all the risks associated with owning and managing a property, in this case long distance, as well as the possibility, of course, that you could lose money, which is the case with any investment. But what I would suggest is that you consider 5 things before making that decision. I think there's 5 additional issues to think about. The first is the cost, the upfront cost of the property versus the cost of paying for a dorm room or an apartment for your son. So the first one is the cost. The second issue is that I would consider is whether owning this rental property may affect your son's ability to get financial aid or have access to financial aid. The third issue is whether you or your son have previous experience managing a property. The fourth is whether this rental property in the town where your son's going to college is an investment that you'd want to hold and own after 4 years, after, presumably, hopefully your son graduates. Is this an investment that you'd want to own beyond that period of time? And I think the fifth issue is whether you and your son have the time, and I think in the case of your son, the maturity to manage a property. So I think if you don't have experience, prior experience managing a property, I don't think it's a good idea to buy a rental property and then cut your teeth on this speculative investment where you're essentially a long distance landlord. So if you don't have experience, I don't think it's worth the risk. I also think that if it's not an investment that you'd want to own after your son hopefully graduates, I don't think it's a good idea to buy either, because you can't time the market, and there's no a lot of things can happen in 4 years, and you don't know exactly where things are going to be with your investment in 4 years. So if you don't have experience, or if you wouldn't want to own the property long term, I don't think it's a good idea. However, if you do have prior experience managing property, it may be something worth considering. So thanks for your question, Clark. For more real estate tips and information, visit my blog at geraldlucas.com. I'm Gerald Lucas, and I'll see you again soon.